my name is Alyssa, and I'm a student here at MHS. I'm a sophomore, and I just wanted to say how much of an honor it is to stand here and speak in front of all of you today. And now I need you all to do something for me. Please raise your hand if the following questions, relate to you. Please raise your hand if, when you were a child, you moved at least once. Okay. Now please raise your hand if you have a close relationship with your mother or father or both. Okay. Now get this. Did you know that frequent relocation in one's childhood can be associated with poor well-being in adulthood? I have another one. 41% of first marriages end in divorce. I was 6 the first time I realized my parents were dysfunctional and would never get back together. I was 6 when I realized my mother was too high to kiss me and tuck me in at bed at night, that my father was too drunk to tell me to toughen up when I got a boo-boo. Both my parents were victims of drug and alcohol abuse, making me a victim of hopelessness and emptiness. And no, I'm not here today to dig up painful memories of the past. I'm only here to spread awareness of what I did and what others can do to get through a childhood like mine. Just spreading ideas worth spreading. Life as a kid. Children imagine life to be like a wonderland, always searching for the rainbow, the pot of gold. I remember one time me and my brother ran outside. It was hailing. We were in a hailstorm. We were in our bathing suits, and we had little fishing nets with us, and we were running to catch the rainbow, looking for the pot of gold and watching out for the ugly leprechaun. I learned as time went on to be as optimistic as I could be. And the reason I learned to do this is because during my lifetime, me and my little brother were moving around. We moved at least once a school year, sometimes twice, and this was hard on a child. I lived with all my family at one point, and we're Italian, so we're a big family. Sunday dinners, it was just great. Moving eventually became a norm to me, something that isn't supposed to be normal. We moved around with my mother, my father. I've lived with my grandparents, my grandma and my grandpa, aunts and uncles, my mom's boyfriend, his sister, the list goes on. Eventually, moving around was so normal that I began unpacking. I began to not unpack because we lived in suitcases, carried by my 2 parents and dropped off whenever they felt like it. And I had one major fear, and this fear was almost debilitating. And it's kind of a sad one, but I was afraid of cars. And I know what you're thinking, how can someone be afraid of cars? I was afraid of cars because they reminded me of every single time I put a suitcase into them. Every time me and my brother crammed into them, the times we'd have to stop on the highway, the times that it would take 2 hours to move to our next location. I remember that moving really took a toll on my life. And not only did it affect my relationship with my family and parents, it affected my relationships with others. It took a toll on my social skills. I tried very hard to be a nice girl, a very nice girl. I went to school, I would bring the kids candy, I would try to hang out with as many people as I could. I just wanted friends. And I didn't know how to socialize. I was never taught how to socialize because moving so often made me antisocial. And when I would try to socialize, as you can imagine, a young girl with no social skills, my efforts were to no avail. I began to realize that it didn't matter what I did, how nice I was, because in a month I would move anyways, and I would lose the friends that I might have made. Friends was a word that was not in my vocabulary. I cut myself off from people, and I tried very hard not to grow too attached. I would just end up disappointed if I did. And it got to the point where I would begin to tell my little brother, "Don't grow too attached, don't grow too attached, we're going to move anyways," and to which he'd reply, "What are we having for dinner tonight?" And it was always spaghetti. I had diminished social skills. I had no friends. I was a sad little girl. Every time I tried to make friends with the pretty girl next door or the punk guy who stood across from me in class, it would never last, and I would always end up upset. Having friends was not an option for me. It was always back and forth between my parents, and every single time it was back and forth, there was always arguments between them. There was no time for friends, no time for family. I was always packing, unpacking, packing, and unpacking with my little brother. I would pray that all this moving would stop. And eventually, my prayers came true. I finally moved in with my mother. I finally felt happiness living with my mother. I was so happy that she could wrap her arms around me and tell me that she loved me. It was something that I wasn't used to, that my little brother wasn't used to, and we were content. And with happiness, my social skills got better. I began socializing with girls at school, and I made one friend. My friend's name was Lee, and we would hang out in her backyard, and she had a stream, and we'd catch frogs and tadpoles, whatever we could get our hands on. And because my social skills weren't good, one day I decided to push her into her stream. She did not think it was funny, and we never talked again. Anyways, a mother's arms are caring and loving and kind and gentle and warm. But as time went by, my mother's voice grew clouded, and her arms were lazy around me. And I had thought maybe it was because she was tired, because at so many times, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd watch her walk out the door after I'd woken up from a nightmare because of an addiction. And I wasn't a dumb child. I was smart. My eyes saw what was going on, and I don't think she knew that I knew. Without a firm mother role, I decided it was time for me to step up. Me and my little brother were alone in a cruel world, and I loved my little brother. He is one of the most important things in my life, still. So I began cooking, cleaning, doing chores that a 7-year-old is not supposed to do. I think the first thing that I learned how to cook was spaghetti. It was always spaghetti, every single night. I would walk my little brother to school after I had woken him up and got him dressed. I'd get his cereal ready in the morning, not caring about my cereal because it was always him. I would watch out for the neighborhood bully and go after him sometimes if he tried to mess with my little brother. I stepped up to the plate and I became a mother, not only to him, not only to myself, but my mother as well. She slept all day, went out all night because of an addiction. And I don't blame my mother. My mother is an amazingly strong woman who I looked up to every single day, and I love her. Things got bad one day, and I moved in with my grandparents. That was hard for me, to be ripped away from my mother's arms, even if they are lazy, and even if her voice is clouded, and even if she has an addiction that makes her disabled, makes her not able to take care of children the way that she's supposed to. I felt like I was being ripped away from something that I loved so much. I didn't realize that my move-in with my grandparents was the best thing for me. And so I threw temper tantrums. I would scream and cry, kick, whatever I could do to just make my grandparents' lives miserable. Sometimes I wouldn't eat, shower, drink. Eventually, my mother was in and out of rehabs. It felt like she was in them at least once a month, and this gave me hope that she would get better. I dreamed of moving back in with her. I loved her so much, but I saw that she wouldn't get better because she would get out of rehabs and relapse, go back to her old addiction. I gave up hope to remain hopeful. I gave up hoping that my mother was going to get better, and gave up hoping that I would move in with her one day and we'd be a big happy family, because I knew inside that hoping would only make me depressed, and I still struggle with this depression today. I push forward, and I plan on breaking free of the stereotype and the boundary that what I was raised in will define me, because it will not. And I am a strong woman, and I stand here today in front of you all knowing that I can accomplish anything. Thank you.